would like to welcome you to Thrive in the Word. Now, here in West Michigan, spring is trying to take over. But you know what? One day it can be 80 degrees, the next day a high of in the 30s. And I mean, it goes back and forth, and eventually spring will take over, at least we hope so. But you know, people are like that in many ways. They're one day they're here, the next day they're there, and constantly um, moving from one side to the other, especially when it comes to their faith and to their love for the Lord Jesus Christ. And so James is writing in the fourth chapter of James, and he starts out verse number 4 with a very, what we could think of as a very derogatory statement. He says, "You adulteresses." Now, we need to understand that James is not talking about sexual adultery. What he's talking about is the people of Israel. Now remember that James is writing to Jewish people, but the people of Israel have had a history of going from one place to another, a place where they're in love with God to a place where they're following idols. And they've gone back and forth, and that's considered spiritual adultery. Now, let me just say something. I believe that the greatest threat and the greatest problem in the churches today and in our Christian lives is spiritual adultery. Who are we going to serve? So James starts out the verse number 4, and he says, "You adulteresses." In other words, you are committing adultery. Now, he's not talking about sexual adultery. He's talking about spiritual adultery. And then this is what he says. "Do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility towards God?" Now, he's asking a hypothetical question here. He's not expecting an answer. But he's saying, don't you understand that friendship with the world is hostility towards God? Now, we need to understand exactly what James is talking about here. First of all, when he says that friendship with the world, he uses the Greek word phileo or philia, and it means an affection. It doesn't mean being friendly. Now, how many of you ever ran into a Christian that just wasn't very friendly? Well, you know what? Their problem is they need to get closer to Jesus. But he's not talking about being friends with the people of the world. What he's talking about is having a strong affection for the world. Now, we get our English word Philadelphia, or the name of a city, from this word phileo, and again it means to have not brotherly love, but a deep affection. Many times we've translated it and said it's brotherly love, but it really means a deep affection. And then he says that to have a friendship with the world is hostility, and that word hostility could be also translated enmity, or being made an enemy of God. Now, we need to define what the world is. Now, the world is not the people of the world. When James wrote this, he was not thinking about people. He was thinking about the world's system, the way the world does things. He was thinking about the way the world operates and how it operates. You see, he's using a Greek word here, and the Greek word is cosmos. We actually get our English word cosmetics from it. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for women to wear cosmetics, okay? But what it really means is it's that outward mask, or the outward way of applying things to our lives. How many of you know that there are things that are in the world that They are ungodly and they are against God. They are enemies of God himself. And so James comes in and he says, you adulteresses, don't you know that being friends with the world is being an enmity or being hostility towards God? We need to understand that when we have an affection for the world's systems, for all the things that are in the world, John wrote in 1 John, I think it's chapter 2, verse 15, for the things that are in the world, they are the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. I might have them in wrong order, but you all understand what I'm saying. I think it's actually verse 16. But those are the things that James is saying, that they are hostility towards God, the lust of the flesh. What is that? It's an out of control desire for the things of the flesh, which could be sleep, it could be sex, it could be food, it could be drink, it could be all kinds of physical things. But then, how many of you know that many times we major on those things, but we minor on the other ones? What about the lust of the eyes? Those things are things that you can see, like popularity, fame, manipulation, and control. Those are out of control desires that are part of the world system. And if you're falling into that, you know what? You are actually operating in opposition to God. And then the boastful pride of life. I can do it on my own, basically, is what that means. I'm doing this on my own. And that's hostility towards God. Now let's take a look at the last sentence of verse number 4. Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. You see, we have a choice to make. We can either follow the world system and do what the world does, or we can follow God. If we follow the world system and do what the world does, you know what? We become in opposition. We become an enemy of God. What are you going to do today? You've got a choice. I've got a choice to make. Are we going to operate according to this world system of hatred, this world system of strife and enmity and fighting? Or are we going to operate in God's system? Are we going to operate to please God? So I ask you that question. Think about it as you go through your day. Thank you for joining us here at Thrive in the Word. We're going to continue tomorrow teaching from the book of James.